There are a large number of different online methods for making money, but publishing books to Kindle is one of the most underutilized and potentially profitable. In fact, making money from Kindle is probably one of the best ways to live the passive income dream shared by so many marketers. This is an opportunity to make money while you're sleeping, while you're on holiday, or while you're busy with other tasks. And it's a chance to sell to a huge audience that includes everyone from the tech-savvy marketers you're used to selling to silver surfers, stay-at-home mums, students, and everyone in between. In 2010, Amazon announced that ebook sales had surpassed paperback sales on Amazon, which should tell you just what a gigantic market you have to tap into here. This is a far cry from selling a make money ebook via a sales page on your website, which will only appeal to a relatively small audience. How much profit can you make? It's massive. Some people are making several $100,000 a year from Kindle, and once they've set that business up, they don't have to do anything much to maintain it. Selling books on Kindle is also a fantastic side business. It's a brilliant way to diversify and to give yourself an additional income stream, and it's also a great way to make your business more resilient in the face of market changes. You can reuse old materials this way and even use it to promote your other websites, products, and other businesses. Oh, and guess what else? It's actually really easy and incredibly scalable. Unlike creating mobile apps or websites, you don't need any particular skills, other than the basic ability to write, though that's negotiable too, and you can have an ebook up and running and for sale on the marketplace in a matter of hours. But there are, of course, caveats. Making money on Kindle isn't easy if you don't know what you're doing. It's a very saturated market, with 4.3 million ebooks available in the US right now, and there are several irritating catches, like the high commission that Amazon charges, that you need to be aware of. What you really need is some kind of map, almost like a guidebook that can help you to find your way through the world of Kindle publishing, to avoid the pitfalls and problems along the way, and to give yourself the highest chance of success. And guess what? You've got one. In this video series, you will learn how the Kindle ecosystem works and how to thrive in it, how to create and publish your own books, how to navigate the sometimes confusing taxes, commissions, and legal aspects, how to promote your ebooks, how to handle reviews, how to use basic SEO to make your books easily discoverable, how to price and package your books for optimum sales, how to create ebooks quickly even if you don't know how to write, how to future-proof your business against future changes, and how to diversify and appear on other e-readers. Even if you don't have any prior experience in making money online, running a blog, or creating content, you'll be able to create something quickly and easily and have your own book getting downloads and making money on Kindle within days. To begin with, you might make a few dollars a week, but if you follow the advice in the rest of this series, you could potentially be earning thousands in next to no time. And the really exciting thing? That will make you a professional author and publisher. Are you ready to dive into the world of Kindle publishing? Then let's get started, and we'll do that in the next video. And there you have it. That's pretty much everything you need to know to start succeeding on Kindle. To summarize what we've learned, create a book in the right niche. Choose a small niche, but one with broad enough appeal. Pick a niche that allows you to easily use your existing contacts to promote it. Make sure your book is well written and edited, and that it offers something genuinely new for your audience. Outsource the creation of your book if necessary. Think of ways to reuse content and to get maximum profit for your investment. Format your book using the strict guidelines provided by Amazon. Create a great cover, description, and so on. Subtly use key phrases. Consider the correct pricing and whether you should enroll into Kindle Select. Run promotions to maximize downloads, ratings, and momentum. Promote your book externally through social media, YouTube, your blog, other sites, etc. Then rinse and repeat. This is an incredibly exciting and rewarding way to make money online, and with the right approach and a well-written book, it can also be incredibly profitable and it can facilitate a true passive income. Everyone's got a book in them. It's time to get yours out. Before we go any further, it will probably be a good idea to take a look at exactly what the Kindle is and what it's all about. To that end, Kindle began life as a hardware device from Amazon, although it's grown beyond that now. The Kindle name was originally the brainchild of branding consultants Michael Cronan and Karen Hibner, while the device itself came from Amazon's Lab 126. The first device was released in 2007 and looked quite different to the ones we know today. Nevertheless, the original Kindle still set the tone for what we have come to expect from these devices. The main innovation with the Kindle is the e-ink display. This means that the display actually uses real ink, which is arranged on the screen as pixels, just in the same way that regular screens use pixels made of light. This gives the device a number of unique advantages above and beyond more traditional e-readers. For starters, e-ink displays are matte and non-reflective. This means they can be read in direct sunlight without any glare or eye strain. In terms of the way reading a Kindle feels, it's actually very similar to reading a real paper book. Another big advantage of the e-ink display is that it doesn't require any energy to keep it on. Once the page has loaded, the ink remains in place with no further power. This means Kindles can last weeks between charges and that an image can even be displayed when the screen is off. This made the Kindle a huge hit over other e-book readers at the time, which could be uncomfortable to read and would regularly need charging. On the downside, the e-ink display does have some limitations. One is that it's only available in black and white, for now, which limits the enjoyment of, say, reading comics. Another limitation is that e-ink displays are slow to refresh, which means they can't be used to watch videos or play games. In some ways, though, this can be viewed as a good thing. It means the devices will be solely used for their specific purposes. This focused functionality ensures that people who have Kindles will be using them for reading. Kindle devices vary in terms of their hardware buttons, but most use two buttons on either side to facilitate turning the page forward and backwards. Each side has both buttons to allow for one-handed reading, and a D-pad with the selection button in the center is used for selecting menu items and browsing the store, while later models feature a touchscreen for keyboard input and navigation. Some Kindles now feature backlighting to enable reading in the dark. All of them are designed to be incredibly light and easy to carry around. Originally, the Kindle was white in color with a 6-inch display and a 250 megabyte internal storage. This original model also had expandable storage via an SD card slot and was co-designed with Qualcomm to connect to the web via 3G anywhere in the world. This first generation sold only in the US and was later updated with an XL version that increased the screen size. Kindle 2 hit the stores a while later and was still white in color, now with a 1.4 gigabyte internal memory and a text-to-speech option for reading music aloud. It was slimmer too and came to international markets as well. The third generation of Kindle made the device a matte black stroke charcoal grey, which would remain the chosen color. This edition came with a keyboard and was dubbed the Kindle keyboard. It also had an experimental browser mode, allowing web browsing up to 50 megabytes per month anywhere in the world. Kindle 4 did away with the keyboard in 2011, while the Kindle Touch also launched with a touchscreen. The fifth generation launched in 2012 with 15% faster page loads. The Kindle Paperwhite, meanwhile, boasted a higher resolution, near XGA at 258 by 1024, and a built-in LED for nighttime reading. The Paperwhite 2015 was released in 2015, funny that, and has improved ability to display PDF files, allowing users to do things like select text. It also has translation capabilities, a 6-week battery life, when used for around 30 minutes each day on average, and better formatting capabilities, including a new font called Bookerly. There is also a modern update to the traditional Kindle, the Kindle 7, which was released in 2014. This model is a basic Kindle with a touchscreen and has a 1 GHz CPU. Another modern model is the Kindle Voyage, which came out in 2014 with a 6-inch 300 ppi e-ink display and an adaptive LED that responds to the lighting in the environment. The Kindle Fire is a more traditional Android tablet that carries the Kindle name. This is a device that looks and feels a lot like your typical Nexus device and which has access to the Amazon App Store. That means it can be used not only to read your selection of Kindle books, but also to handle a number of other activities, playing Angry Birds or watching YouTube, for example. Although the 3 Kindle Fire tablets are Android devices, they have a secondary skin provided by Amazon called Fire OS, which makes them look and behave differently. Unlike other Kindles, there is no 3G option for Kindle Fire, and the screen is a regular tablet screen that can produce a fair amount of glare. Perhaps the most important aspect of the Kindle is the Kindle Store. The Kindle Store is basically a marketplace and distribution platform that allows users to browse and purchase ebooks. This works like an app store or like the regular Amazon store, in that users search for titles using the usual search box, you can see right here, and then just click to buy. Once they do that, the book will then be downloaded to their device and they can start reading it from their personal library. The Kindle Store is actually bigger than that though. For instance, users can also download Kindle apps in order to access their Kindle books on their smartphones. With the Kindle app for Android and iOS, a user can browse their library and read their selection of books. At the same time, they can also browse the store in order to purchase new books. Books on Kindle devices and the app will be automatically synced so that you can stop reading on your Kindle and then pick up from where you left off on your mobile. For example, when you're bored in the queue at the bank or somewhere like that. And this is important for us as publishers, as it means our audience is actually much larger than just the number of people who own Kindles. Likewise, it's also possible to buy Kindle books through Amazon.com. This way, the users elect to buy either the physical or the digital version. As you can see here, you can get either the hardcover or you can get the Kindle edition, and they've got different pricing as well. The Kindle edition is always somewhat cheaper. And subsequently, the file will be downloaded to the Kindle or they'll be delivered the hard copy. Now, books sold on the Kindle Store are available in EPUB format, and this format allows for certain additional features such as interactive menus, and it helps to keep your books protected. As on Amazon and most app stores, it's possible for users to leave reviews about the books, which can encourage or deter other users from making a purchase. This, as well as factors such as sales and keywords, combine to influence the ranking order of the books for different search strings. This is something we'll be looking at in a lot more detail later in the series. The Kindle Store has recently introduced a number of initiatives. These include a subscription service called Kindle Unlimited and a rental system that allows users to borrow books. We'll look at what both these mean and whether you should opt in or opt out later on. For us, the biggest appeal of the Kindle store is that it's a ready-made distribution platform. If you can get a book to be featured prominently in this platform, then you can guarantee it will be seen daily by hundreds or thousands of people. People can then order the books without you having to lift a finger, and they'll be buying with one click without you having to gain their trust first or manage the transaction. In this way, a distribution platform becomes a route to market, and it makes the whole process of selling considerably easier. Now you don't need to worry about reaching your buyers, gaining their trust, or any of those other things. It's like getting a product onto the shelf of a massive store, and it's one of the gigantic advantages of being a Kindle publisher. Now you know the basics of the Kindle ecosystem. You should start to have a good idea as to how your book will be found, read, and enjoyed by other users. What you also need to think about, though, is who will be reading your books and when. What is it that makes the Kindle so popular? Understanding this can help you to better understand your audience and thereby to make more sales. Of course, there are countless types of people who use the Kindle, and this is one of its major appeals. The Kindle is a particularly user-friendly piece of technology. Amazon is such a household name that it's something everyone can trust. This is important because a lot of older web users often worry about security when shopping online, and this can prevent sales. At the same time, the Kindle feels a lot more like a book to hold and use, and it has a very simple and straightforward interface. As such, it's enjoyed by people who might not normally use tablets, a much wider demographic than most digital marketers are used to selling to. This in turn means that you can think a little wider in terms of your niche. Don't just go for the same topics you're used to covering online. Think about things that mums or elderly readers might enjoy. The main appeal of the Kindle is that it can be easily taken anywhere and it can hold so many books. This is the perfect solution if you're going on holiday, for instance, and you want to read a lot of books without adding too much weight to your luggage. And because Kindles offer 3G anywhere in the world, depending on the model, you can even buy and download new books to read while you're out there. Holidaymakers and travelers then are two of the biggest groups to read on Kindle, and many people will dust off their devices when they're about to go on holiday. Think about this when choosing what type of books to write. If it's something people would typically enjoy on a holiday, like a travel guide, then you might be onto a winner. Likewise, a lot of commuters will read Kindles as a way to entertain themselves on the train or subway or bus. This again opens up another large audience for your books, the professional. Think about the kinds of things that city workers might like to read and the kinds of things they're specifically going to be in the mood to read on the way to work. The first big question you'll need to ask when creating your Kindle book is, what niche are you going to try and compete in? This is actually one of the most important decisions you'll make in the entire process, as it will determine the audience for your ebook, the marketing options available to you, the amount of competition, and much more. If you don't choose your niche carefully, then you'll end up making a lot more work for yourself when it comes to promotion, and in the worst case scenario, you may even limit the size of your potential audience to such an extent that it's hard to make much money at all. Now, let's look at how you can ensure you get this bit right. If you have aspirations to be the next J.K. Rowling, then you might be tempted to make your book a fiction book. This, of course, is up to you, but you should know that you've just made your life a lot harder. You can market your book yourself, and we'll look at how to do this later on. But in the meantime, if your main aim is to make money, then you want it to be possible for people to find your book without having heard of it before. If your book is about gardening, then you can call it Gardening in Winter. There's now a very small chance that someone might just search for that exact phrase, not even knowing that your book exists, and find your title to download. But on the other hand, if your book is about wizards and it's called The Majestic Journey of Mr. Darkshadow, then people aren't likely to search for that title unless they happen to know about your book and they've read lots of good reviews. There are ways you can get round this, but it's not going to be as easy to get discovered. So making your book something that will get searched for is a good idea. And at the same time, if you can set out to solve a very specific problem, then this is something that will really help you to market yourself and sell your book. This is why non-fiction books tend to work very well, and especially those which solve a simple problem that a specific type of person is looking for. Think about the problem you're going to solve and think about the key phrase your book is automatically going to lend itself to. Will people search for the title of your book? Will they search for related phrases? But now you have another question. Do you aim for a large audience or a smaller one? Do you create a book that's going to be a small fish in a big pond? Or do you go where there will be much less competition? Case in point, you can either create a book about fitness or you can create a book about curling, the sport that involves sweeping ice. The fitness book is going to have a massive potential audience, and in theory, this means that you can sell to a much bigger number of people and make a lot more profit. But on the other hand, that fitness book will also have the challenge of needing to stand out in a very crowded marketplace. In other words, there are going to be hundreds of other ebooks competing with you to make it to the top, and your chances of standing out are going to be quite slim. Things get worse when you consider that some of those publishers are going to be massive corporations with millions of dollars to spend on marketing. You'll be competing with best-selling authors in the niche like Tim Ferriss, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Pavel Tatsalin. Call your book Fitness 101 and you're setting yourself up for failure. Conversely, when you create a book on curling, you're going to find it much easier to stand out. Post to a curling forum that you've just released a new book on their favorite topic, and this will probably be enough to lead to a number of rapid downloads. People will be excited that there's new content on their favorite subject because it's a subject that rarely gets tackled. What's more, you have clear places to go to promote yourself, curling forums and Reddit pages, for example. There's much less content here, so posting will get you noticed. You can probably get coverage in magazines even because the niche is so much smaller and there's less news to report. Try and get coverage by Men's Health, however, and you'll be competing with thousands and thousands of other emails. You can pay for Google AdWords in the curling niche and get lots of clicks for a relatively low price because the cost per click is calculated using a bidding process. And even if you do absolutely no marketing and no optimization, your book will probably be on the first few pages of the Kindle store automatically when someone searches. Why? Because there are probably only a few pages worth of content. But that's not to say that curling is the perfect niche. Of that small audience of people interested in curling, you're only going to manage to convince a small percentage that they should read your book. As a result, once you saturate that market, you may well end up with no one left to sell to. Another problem with the curling niche is that you're not going to change people's lives. You might be wondering why that would matter, but think of it this way. The reason that most internet marketers choose niches like make money online, fitness and dating is because those niches very genuinely could change someone's life. Being in better shape and feeling more confident as a result, having less body fat, being more successful with the opposite sex and earning more money, these are all things that are highly motivating. These are universal goals that almost all of us can, at least appreciate, and that makes your book much easier to sell. Better yet, if your book promises to make someone money, then in theory that expense could be an investment. That way, People will happily spend the money because they're going to be more likely to think that they can make it back. This in turn means they don't see any downside of spending the money on your book. Choose curling and you won't have this kind of life-changing power unless your book happens to be aimed at people who plan on making this their career. While people might still be happy to pay $5 for a book about curling on a whim, you won't be able to charge as much as you could for a book that offered to make them rich and attractive, or one they need to advance their career and fulfill their dreams. The key then is to try and choose a niche that will offer all the benefits of a big category without being so incredibly difficult to stand out and gain traction in. One way you might think about this is to go big but not too big. A perfect example of this is to choose an industry or career, and ideally you want something that you know a bit about. A perfect example of this comes from someone I once knew who wrote a book on stage lighting. Now, stage lighting is a niche that 99.99% of the population would have absolutely no interest in. However, that remaining 0.01% of people would actually benefit greatly from some kind of book to help them further their career. That guy managed to get his book mentioned in an industry magazine and on some websites, and it quickly became the #1 book in that category. The result? He was making hundreds of dollars a month, and this was on top of his regular salary, and it was a very nice little sum of cash. Likewise, you might work in a different career that you happen to know a bit about. Or perhaps you can use your internet marketing skills and hone them in on one specific career or subject. For example, how about teaching a counselor how to set up their own website and promote it online? Or how about doing the exact same thing for personal trainers, for people who want to sell homemade jewelry on Etsy, for people who want a career in photography? You get the picture. You should, of course, research the niche that you intend to go into as well. Don't dive straight in assuming that there won't be that much competition, as this can be a big mistake. Instead, make sure to actually do a few searches and to find out for certain whether or not there are lots of other books out there. Likewise, do some research as to the other routes to market that you can use to promote yourself. Another tip is to think about the contacts and opportunities that you already have available to you. Almost all of us know people in some kind of important position, and almost all of us have got some useful contacts or experience. In other words, if you happen to have been a #1 trader for a big firm, then that gives you a lot of reason to write a book about trading. Not only are you going to have lots of useful information to bring to the subject, writing what you know about is always a good idea, but you're also going to have contacts within your previous organization, you're going to have contacts with relevant industry magazines and so on that you can use. Likewise, if you just so happen to be best friends with the editor of Gardening Monthly, then that's a very good reason to consider making a book about gardening. Another option is to approach a large niche, but to find your own corner of that niche and your own way to make it your own. A great example of this would be to write a book about stretching. This is a fitness topic broadly, but it's also a topic that is a lot more specific than that. If someone wants to improve their flexibility, then you stand a better chance of getting noticed. Or how about a subcategory of fitness? That might mean Metcon, which is metabolic conditioning, HIIT, high intensity interval training, the paleo diet, although there's a lot on this topic, or power building. This is a combined form of bodybuilding and powerlifting. You could also look at a particular training appliance. For example, you could write the guide to the chest press for when people buy new machines to use at home. This is a particularly good option, and you can also write guides to other products. For example, what about a guide to using kitchen knives rather than a generic book on cooking? This way you could even speak to sellers of particular knife products and see if they might recommend your book to their buyers if you do likewise. In fact, you could even recommend it yourself in a review of their product. Instead of writing about martial arts in general, how about writing about a specific martial art? Better yet is if you can land on something that is up and coming. Find a movement that's emerging online and be the first to write about it, and your book will be ready for when people get really interested in that subject in their masses. This once again goes hand in hand with products. For example, how about writing a guide to using the latest iPhone model the moment it comes out? Or how about writing a guide to those hoverboards? You can be the first to what is likely to be a big niche, and in this way, and at that point, it becomes a little like market speculation. Or how about choosing a particular audience within a much larger niche? So instead of writing a fitness book aimed at everyone who wants to get fit, in other words, everybody, you could write a fitness book aimed at the elderly, the diabetic, or even people who travel a lot. In all these ways, you're finding niches that have a broad, universal appeal, but also might be easier to rank in for the search results. Despite everything I said in the last video, it doesn't mean you absolutely cannot write a fiction book and be successful. In fact, there are several ways that you can have a hit on your hands if you write fiction. You just need to think carefully about how to go about it. One tip to that end is to think carefully about the genre. In this regard, genre is going to work a lot like choosing a niche. Here you want to pick a subject that will give you lots of marketing options and that will have lots of fans ready to get excited about it and help you to promote it. For example, if you write a cyberpunk book, you'll find that there are whole forums where people discuss the subject and will probably be interested in reading what you've written. Likewise, you can find people who are big fans of gothic horror or of romance novels. If your book is really good, then word of mouth might be enough to help it spread. You can also use these phrases and words in your description and elsewhere on your listing in order to make your book easier to find. Likewise, it can help to think about books which are similar to yours. I'm not telling you to copy or to write books about stories that don't excite you. I wouldn't be that cynical. I'm merely saying that if your book happens to have a similarity to, say, the Da Vinci Code, then it won't hurt for you to emphasize that connection and to mention it. This way, people will be able to more quickly grasp what your book is about and whether they might like it. Again, it might be more likely to come up in searches or as a suggested similar book.